All right, so this is going to be a quick response, as quick as I can, I suppose, to this video here by Donovan Sharp, How the Lack of Respect for Fathers Has Destroyed America, with Rollo Tomassi and Anthony Johnson. So I do agree that there is an attack on men. I do agree that there's an attack on fathers specifically. I do believe that 100%. And I do believe there's a lack of respect for men in general, as well as for fathers. And I think that this is such a important topic. And I've only been, 23 minutes in. This is a 2-hour video, so I have not watched this whole thing. But I wanted to make a comment on something that was said here recently in the last couple minutes here. But I have spoken about this a lot, actually. I do believe that the lack of respect for fathers and how the fathers have been disrespected and how the mothers have been uplifted in our society is a huge problem. And I think that it's meant to be that way. I think that they're doing that on purpose. The people, the feminists, the people who, the far left is, the liberals, I think they're doing that on purpose. I think they want to throw men under the bus for a reason, so that women can have more power and more leverage in society. But I do believe this is real. But I wanted to make a point here because these guys were Donovan and this guy Anthony Johnson had just made a point in Rollo Tomassi. They were talking about how things have changed, how men used to be told to suck it up and go out there, and they use the example of Michael Jordan losing to the Detroit Pistons and how that fueled him to be successful in the 90s after the Pistons era of 89 and 90, I believe, is when they won their 2 championships, and how men can use failure to fuel them, and they need to, dust themselves off and get back up again. And the point was made that men today are being coddled by women, and they're being told to emote, and they're being told to, they're being taught how to be more in tune with their emotions. And I don't necessarily have such a problem with that. And I make this clear in this comment here. And the reason why I don't have such a problem with that is because I think that men in general have a hard time showing their emotions, and I think this has ruined a lot of men because we are told to suck it up. We are told to stop being a pussy and get back out there and and that it causes alcoholism, it causes anger, it can result in domestic violence. How men deal with negative situations, negative scenarios, is a lot of times they internalize it. Now, somebody wrote a good book a while back. It was called I Don't Want to Talk About It. It was about male depression. And like I said, the title was I Don't Want to Talk About It. And it was talking about, in the book, it was explaining how men internalize depression, or how men internalize outward negative things that happen to them, and that causes depression. The result of that internalization is depression. So this talking about how men are taught in our society to deal with things, to suck it up, to be better. And they were saying that here. They were saying, don't just cry about it, get better. Okay, to some extent, some of that is needed. Yes, there's going to be a lot of failures in life. I agree. I agree that men are going to lose jobs, men are going to lose women, men are going to get beat down by finances or this, that, and the third. I agree. And it's hard on men, okay? And I appreciate MRAs, men's rights activists. I appreciate people who stand up for men and women against feminism, those type of people, the honey badgers of the world. I appreciate that. I appreciate them because they are in tuned emotionally to the plight of men in general. They're in tuned to how men can be beaten down. They are in tuned to how men can be thrown under the bus in society. And even MGTOW, to a good extent, really talks about that, particularly with regards to the interpersonal relationships between men and women, and in actual relationships between men and women, how men get thrown under the bus in the family court system, how men get taken advantage of through alimony, how men have to pay women half the money that they earned working their whole life just for a divorce. So we go through it, and on the one hand, sometimes we might need to buck up. We might need to get back out there, brush ourselves off and get back out there. But sometimes we get beaten down again and again and again. And sometimes it's not healthy to internalize that. Sometimes that can result in suicide. The male suicide rate is much higher, and I believe it's much higher because we don't allow our men to talk. We don't allow our men to talk about our problems. And these guys here, Donovan Sharp, Rollo Tomassi, and Anthony Johnson apparently, are saying that it's feminine to talk about your problems. They're saying it's feminine to have emotions. No, it's human to have emotions. It's human to want to talk about your problems as opposed to internalizing them and just being sad on the inside for years and years. I have a friend who had a hard relationship recently, and he's trying to compensate with this strong front that he's putting on. And he's doing what these guys are saying. Be better. Improve yourself so you don't get dumped next time. And the reason why I think he got dumped was because he didn't make enough money for this girl. So what he's trying to do now is he's trying to focus on making more money for the next girl. I don't necessarily know if that's a healthy compensation. I don't know if I don't agree that what he's doing is necessarily healthy, because he's getting better as opposed to just finding someone better. You should find somebody who really loves you for you, despite the fact that, okay, you might not make that much money. You might be technically at the poverty level, but you're still working, you're still paying rent, you still have a job. Like, that's good enough, but it's not good enough for a lot of these women. And even if you aren't, say you're sick, say you live at home still, a woman should still love you. If not, then, she doesn't really love you. Her love isn't real. And I've said that again and again and again for, a million times. But he's internalized the pain. He took me aside a couple times, and we hung out a few times, and he kind of emoted to me, and he was very hurt, very deeply hurt, because he's a very introverted guy, and he's a very loving guy, and he's somewhat of a traditional guy in that he wanted a woman to be submissive to him as far as loving him, et cetera, and as far as being loyal to him, and she wasn't loyal to him. She cheated on him and all these other things. And it really, really hurt this guy because he loved her. This is my friend Jack. And he went through a very hard time. And he's been going through a very hard time. And he hasn't been dealing with it correctly, because when I ask him how he's doing, I know he's hurt because he hasn't been texting me as much. He hasn't been coming around. He's not the same happy guy. He's very sad. He's very, emotive. But he's just internalizing it. He's going to be emotive either way. These guys are saying don't be emotive. He's going to be emotive either way. It's just that now he's internalizing it. And that's why it's eating at him. And it's become an existential thing, an existential funk, an existential depression. Whereas if he would have talked about it, and he did a little bit, but I tried to say, you know what, these girls aren't this, these girls aren't that. He's kind of doing what these guys are doing. He's kind of doing what these guys are saying. Buck up. Get better, put yourself back out there. And okay, sometimes that's needed. You don't want to stay in a funk forever. You don't want to stay, eventually you got to move on for your own health, for the rest of your life. Eventually you got to move on. But, I don't think it's unhealthy for a man to have emotions. I don't think it's feminine for a man to have emotions, because humans have emotions. Men tend to be more reasonable. They tend to be more logical. They tend to be more mental. That is true. But it does not mean we don't have emotions, because we do. And that's why a lot of these guys are shooting each other. That's why there's a lot of guys in jail. That's why there's a lot of guys hooked on drugs. That's why there's a lot of guys who are married to bars. They go to bars every night because they are fucked up in their emotions, because something bad happened to them. They got dumped, they got used, or whatever. And I've been down that road, so I know that emotions are real, and no, I don't need to man up. It's just something that we got to deal with, and you might need counseling. You might need to figure it out some way with a trained psychologist, These women will fuck us over. Life will fuck us over. We'll lose our job, we'll lose our house, our kids and our wives will leave us. If we lose our job, see, this is all this pressure put on us, and this is why men commit suicide. This is why men commit murder. This is why men do all kinds of messed up stuff. So we don't have the checks and balances that women do, or not the checks and balances. We don't have the support, the emotional support from other men around the world. In fact, we have the opposite of that. Men laugh at us. We get laughed at if we break our leg. It's funny if we break our leg. If a woman breaks her leg, the whole world stops. If a woman gets dumped, all her friends come out of the woodwork and say, he ain't shit, he's nobody. If a man gets dumped, he needs to move on, and it's his fault, he needs to improve, yada yada, right? All right, so this is my comment. And well, in my humble opinion, there should be a balance between being able to deal with emotions over hardships and getting back on track after a failure. I've never been a big proponent of this whole quote unquote, you're a man, so suck it up after a failure. Yes, failure is a part of life, but I guess it depends on the failure. If you're promoting masculinity in such a way as to suggest stoicism is the best method to deal with hardships, then in my opinion, you are promoting toxic masculinity, which I do believe is real. Now, I'm not a feminist at all. I can't stand them for the most part, but I do agree that there is toxic masculinity out there. It's why men are a larger proponent more likely to commit suicide, because women have emotional support and men have none. We are just told to get over it when some huge hardship happens to us. We are not supported at all, and I don't think that's right. However, yes, men should learn to get back on the horse and try again. Men shouldn't stay in their emotions and wallow in self-pity, and neither should women. But I don't think there's enough support for men out there at all. I get what Rollo and the others are saying about the attack on men, and I agree with it, but I don't think going back to the whole suck it up pussy, quote unquote, boomer mentality is the ultimate answer. There should be a balance. And there you have it. It's a boomer mentality. It's that old school mentality. Oh, you break your arm, walk it off, right? Oh, you got your heart broken. You got your wife left you, and she took the kids with you, and she took half your money, and now you're homeless. Oh, suck it up, pussy. Get back out there and get a job and get another family. Like, it doesn't work like that. Men go through 5, 10 years, 20 years of depression, etc., because something like that happened. And for these guys to just come along and say, oh, you got to get back out there. Look at Michael Jordan. Well, Michael Jordan was playing a game. Basketball is a game. Life is different. Basketball is a game. It is not life. Okay? So, although I appreciate the inspiration, although I appreciate the motivation that it can have for some guys, sometimes it's okay to be emotional. Sometimes it's okay to be hurt after a bad breakup. Sometimes it's okay to feel let down after you worked really hard and didn't get a job, etc. Or your business deal fell through, or your company folded, or you went bankrupt. It's okay to be emotional during those times, all right? It's just eventually, hopefully you do move on. Hopefully you do find closure, and hopefully you can put your life back together. But sometimes it just doesn't work like that. Sometimes it's not easy to do. Sometimes it doesn't happen so quickly. All right, that's all I got to say about that.